Hello everybody, welcome to my video. When do we use the past perfect? A detailed look, the past perfect with action verbs. But before we begin, a grammar side note. Action verbs describe things we do or things that happen. In this video, when I say action or event, I'm referring to action verbs. And here are some examples of action verbs. All right, so let's begin. When do we use the past perfect for action verbs? We use the past perfect when we have two actions or events in the past. And we want to show that one of these past events happened before the other past event. All right, so let's look at our timeline. And here we have the present. And here we have one past event and another past event. And this past event is the earlier event. So it happened before this past event, which is the later event. So we use the past perfect here for the earlier event, and we use the past simple here for the later event. Usually, with action verbs, the past perfect also tells us the earlier action or event not only happened, but finished before the later event began. Now let's look at an example. The football team waved to the crowd. They had won the match. We can see here that waved is in the past simple. So it's the later event in the past. And won is in the past perfect, so it's the earlier event in the past. Is the past perfect always compared to the past simple? Not always, but usually. Does the order in which the tenses appear matter? It can. Let's take a deeper dive. Let's look at this example. Here are two events that happened last Friday evening. The dancers danced beautifully. The audience clapped. We can tell this as a very simple story. The dancers danced beautifully. The audience clapped. And which event happened first? Well, as I said, this is a simple story, so we know first, the dancers danced beautifully. Second, the audience clapped. And how do we know that? Because in simple stories, the events and the sentences happen in the same order. So the first event in time is the dancers danced beautifully. And this is the first sentence in our story. The second event that happened in the story is the audience clapped. And this is the second sentence in our story. So here is our simple story again. The dancers danced beautifully. The audience clapped. But what if we want to make the storytelling more interesting? What if we want to mix up the order of the sentences? What if we make the second event in our story the first sentence in our story? And what if we make the first event in our story the second sentence in our story? Then our story reads, the audience clapped, the dancers had danced beautifully. But if we do that, how do we know which event happened first? Won't we think that the audience clapped first and then the dancers danced? No worries. The past perfect helps us out. The past perfect tells us the dancers danced first and then the audience clapped. See, there it is in red, the past perfect, had danced. And this tells us that the dancers danced first and then the audience clapped. So we have the first event and the second event. Now remember what I said earlier. With action verbs, usually the earlier action or event started and finished before the later event started. Here are our beautiful dancers again. First, they danced. Then they finished. That's right, they finished. And then what happened after the dancers had finished? That's right, the audience clapped. Here's another way to think about it. There is no overlap between the earlier action and the later action. By overlap, we mean this. The red stripe represents the earlier action and the green stripe the later action. And here is where we can see some overlap. So the earlier action was still going on when the later action began. But, as I said, the past perfect tells us there is no overlap between the earlier action and the later action. Now let's see. The audience clapped. The dancers had danced beautifully. So there is a little break between the actions. And this break might just be a split second, but it's there. Here is a summary of how we use the past perfect for actions and events. When we have two actions or events in the past perfect tells us which action or event happened first. It also tells us that the first action or event finished before the next one started. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video. But before you go, here's the past perfect with a little drama.